Welcome back to my channel. Rain poured over the parking lot of Lawson Luxury Motors. A rusty old car rolled slowly through the front gate. Its faded paint was peeling. The engine barely idled. Employees laughed as it parked beside million-dollar supercars. The driver stepped out. His name was Ethan Carter. A humble single dad and local mechanic. His 8-year-old son, Noah, climbed out beside him. "Dad. Are you sure we're at the right place?" Ethan smiled. "Yes. I only need one small part." Inside the showroom, CEO Victoria Lawson noticed the rusty car through the glass wall. She frowned. "Who allowed that junk into my dealership?" The sales manager replied. "A customer, ma'am." Victoria walked outside. She looked at Ethan's car with disgust. "How much did you pay for this thing?" Ethan answered honestly. $120. The employees burst into laughter. Victoria smirked. $120. That's not a car. That's scrap metal. Noah lowered his head. Embarrassed. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. A car isn't measured by how it looks. It's measured by the story it carries. Victoria laughed. Stories don't increase value. Money does. Then she called security. "Move that wreck. It's ruining the image of my showroom." As security prepared to tow the car, an elderly man waiting in the service area suddenly stood up. He stared at the rusty vehicle. His expression changed instantly. He walked closer. His hands began to tremble. He whispered, "No. It can't be." He carefully wiped away decades of dirt from a small chrome badge hidden near the front fender. His eyes widened. He looked directly at Ethan. "Young man. Do you have any idea what you've been driving?" Ethan shook his head. "I only know it cost me $120. The old man smiled. "You didn't buy a cheap car. You may have bought one of the rarest cars ever built." The entire dealership fell silent. The dealership fell completely silent. The elderly man knelt beside the rusty car. With a soft cloth, he wiped away years of dust from the faded emblem. His hands trembled. Victoria crossed her arms. "Well, what makes this pile of rust so special?" The old man slowly stood. "My name is Arthur Bennett. I spent 40 years authenticating classic collector cars. I've never been wrong." He pointed to a tiny metal plate hidden beneath the hood latch. "This serial number. It was believed to have disappeared over 50 years ago." The sales staff exchanged confused looks. Victoria frowned. "So what?" Arthur smiled. "This isn't an ordinary car. It's the first hand-built prototype of a legendary sports model. There was only one." Ethan looked shocked. "I bought it from an old farmer. He said it had been sitting in his barn for decades." Arthur nodded. "That explains why it survived. Most people would have scrapped it." Noah looked at his father. "Dad. Is our car really special?" Ethan smiled. "I guess we're about to find out." Just then, Victoria laughed. "I don't care what story you're telling. It still looks like junk." She turned toward the crusher at the back of the dealership. "If it's so valuable, prove it. Otherwise I'll have it crushed and pay you double what you spent. I'll give you $240. The employees laughed again. Arthur suddenly shouted, "Stop." He opened the driver's door. Hidden behind the worn dashboard was a small brass compartment. Inside lay an old leather envelope sealed with red wax. Across the front were handwritten words. "To the first true owner." No one spoke. Arthur carefully handed the envelope to Ethan. "You should open it." Ethan broke the ancient seal. Inside was a faded letter. And an original factory ownership certificate. At the bottom of the page was a signature that made Arthur step backward in disbelief. He whispered. I never thought I'd see this signature in my lifetime. Victoria leaned closer. Whose signature is it? Arthur looked at her with wide eyes. The founder himself. And if this certificate is genuine, that $120 car may be worth tens of millions of dollars. The entire showroom froze. The entire showroom stood frozen. Victoria stared at the faded signature. You're telling me this rusty car is worth millions? Arthur nodded. If the documents are authentic, it could become one of the greatest automotive discoveries in decades. Within an hour, collectors, historians, and automotive experts began arriving at the dealership.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
News crews gathered outside. The story spread across the internet. Man buys $120 car that could be worth millions. Victoria could hardly believe what she was seeing. Just that morning, she had wanted to crush the car. One expert carefully examined the chassis. Another inspected the engine. After several hours, the chief historian smiled. Everything matches the original factory records. The engine. The frame. The hand-built body panels. There is no doubt. This is the genuine prototype. Everyone applauded. Noah hugged his father tightly. Dad. We're rich. Ethan smiled. We're lucky. There's a difference. Arthur wasn't finished. There is one more thing. He opened the leather envelope again. Hidden inside was a folded blueprint. Across the top were the words. Prototype Project Number 1. At the bottom, a handwritten note read. The second prototype will always remain with the first. Never separate them. Victoria looked confused. What second prototype? Arthur slowly folded the paper. That's the mystery. No one has ever found it. Just then, a black luxury limousine pulled into the dealership. A silver-haired gentleman stepped out. The moment Arthur saw him, he whispered, I know that face. The man walked directly toward Ethan. My name is Richard Hale. My grandfather designed this car. He reached into his briefcase and removed an old black and white photograph. It showed two identical prototype cars parked side by side. Richard looked Ethan in the eyes. The second car still exists. And I know exactly where it is. The crowd gasped. Arthur smiled. This story is only beginning. The dealership buzzed with excitement. Everyone gathered around Richard Hale. He carefully unfolded the old black and white photograph. Two identical prototype cars stood side by side. On the back was a handwritten note. The first belongs to history. The second belongs to the future. Ethan looked at Richard. You said you know where the second car is. Richard nodded. I've spent 30 years searching for it. I finally found the clue last month. The next morning, Ethan, Noah, Arthur, Victoria, and Richard traveled to an abandoned countryside estate. At the edge of the property stood a weathered brick barn. Its doors were chained shut. Richard held up an old brass key. My grandfather told me, if the first prototype is ever found, the second should finally see daylight. He unlocked the doors. With a loud creak, the barn slowly opened. Sunlight poured inside. Dust floated through the air. Under a massive gray canvas rested another car. Everyone held their breath. Richard slowly pulled the cover away. The room fell silent. It was the second prototype. Unlike Ethan's rusty car, this one looked almost brand new. Its paint still shined. The chrome sparkled. Arthur whispered. I never thought I'd live to see both prototypes together. As they admired the car, Noah noticed an old wooden chest beside it. Dad! What's inside? Ethan opened it carefully. Inside were original blueprints, factory journals, rare photographs, and a leather-bound diary. On the final page was a handwritten message. These two cars were never meant to be sold separately. Together, they tell the complete story. Richard smiled. My grandfather wanted the world to remember how this dream began. Just then, several black SUVs sped toward the barn. Men in expensive suits stepped out. Their leader smiled confidently. Thank you for finding the second prototype. We'll be taking both cars now. Victoria stepped in front of Ethan. Who are you? The man handed her a business card. I'm Victor Kane. I represent a private collector. He looked at the two priceless cars. And I'm prepared to do anything to own them. The atmosphere instantly turned tense. The atmosphere inside the old barn turned tense. Victor Kane's men surrounded the two prototype cars. Their leader smiled. I'll make this simple. I'll pay $1 billion for both cars. The room fell silent. Victoria looked at Ethan. That's the biggest private offer I've ever heard. Ethan glanced at the two prototypes. Then calmly shook his head. They're not for sale. Victor's smile disappeared. Everyone has a price. Ethan replied. My grandfather taught me that some things belong to history. You can't put a price on that. Just then, police sirens echoed across the countryside. Victor frowned. You called them? Arthur smiled. No. I called the National Heritage Protection Agency. Within minutes, police officers and heritage officials surrounded the barn. Victor and his men were ordered to step away from the cars. As investigators searched Victor's SUVs, they uncovered forged ownership papers, stolen museum artifacts, and documents linked to an international car smuggling ring. The lead investigator looked at Victor. You're under arrest for attempted theft of protected historical property. Victor lowered his head as officers placed him in handcuffs. As he was escorted away, he looked back at Ethan. You have no idea how valuable those cars are. Ethan answered quietly. I know exactly how valuable they are. They're priceless. The Heritage Committee spent several days examining both prototypes. Every serial number matched. Every document was authentic. Finally, the chairman made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, today we officially recognize these two prototype cars as national automotive treasures. The audience erupted into applause. Noah hugged his father tightly. We did it, Dad. Ethan smiled. We protected Grandpa's dream. Victoria walked toward Ethan. Elle almost destroyed your $120 car. I judged it by its rust instead of its history. She extended her hand. I'm sorry. Ethan shook it with a smile. The best lessons are the ones we never forget. Just then, Richard Hale received a phone call. He listened quietly. Then looked at Ethan with a smile. The International Automotive Museum has made a decision. They don't want to buy the cars. They want you to become the official curator of the most important prototype collection in automotive history. Everyone applauded. Ethan looked at Noah. Their incredible journey wasn't over yet. The International Automotive Museum auditorium was filled with journalists, collectors, and historians from around the world. The chairman stepped onto the stage. Today, we celebrate not just two extraordinary cars, but one extraordinary family. He turned toward Ethan. Mr. Carter, we would be honored if you became the official curator of this historic collection. The audience applauded. Ethan smiled. I'm grateful. But I have one condition. The chairman nodded. What is it? Ethan looked at Noah. I don't want these cars locked away where only wealthy collectors can see them. I want children, students, and young mechanics to learn from them. They belong to everyone. The chairman smiled. Then that's exactly what we'll do. 1 year later. The Carter Heritage Automotive Center officially opened. Thousands of visitors walked through its doors every week. At the center of the museum stood the two legendary prototype cars. One remained exactly as Ethan had found it. Rusty and untouched. The other shined like it had just left the factory. Between them stood a bronze plaque. It read, "Never judge something by its appearance. The greatest treasures often hide beneath years of dust." Victoria visited the museum on opening day. She stood quietly beside Ethan. I almost crushed the first prototype. I'll never forget that mistake. Ethan smiled. Sometimes mistakes become the beginning of wisdom. Victoria nodded. You taught me that true value isn't always visible. Noah looked at his father. Dad. What was the best part of this journey? Ethan gently placed his grandfather's old wrench into a display case. Not the money. Not the fame. The best part was honoring Grandpa's promise. As the ceremony ended, a young boy walked up to Ethan. Mr. Carter. If someone laughs at my old car one day, what should I say? Ethan smiled warmly. You don't have to say anything. Just keep believing in what you have. One day, the truth will speak louder than their laughter. The audience gave Ethan a standing ovation. The man who had once driven into a luxury dealership with a $120 rusty car left with something far more valuable than millions. He earned the respect of the entire automotive world. And the CEO who had once tried to crush his car never again judged anyone by appearances.